Hello and welcome to another edition of the book review from CCXP Exam Simulator. This is Michael Bartlett, and today we're going to be reviewing Dan Lok's book called Unlock It, The Master Key to Wealth, Success and Significance, published by Forbes Books. For those of you who don't know who Dan Lok is, he's a, I guess you could say, a Chinese-Canadian entrepreneur. I first heard of him through Evan Carmichael's YouTube channel, so there'll be a lot of videos you'll see on Dan, his top 10 rules of success, that kind of thing. I'm reviewing this on this channel. Obviously, I'm more interested in customer experience books, but this is a very interesting book for entrepreneurs, and I think every entrepreneur is looking at trying to find ways to unlock CX in their business as well. And this actually gives some really interesting ideas that kind of fall along those lines. So that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to review it. So let's get stuck in real quick. So I have 10 book notes for you. Book note number 1. One of the key concepts in this book is that of a high income skill that can make you up to $10,000 per month. Dan was actually able to double his price over and over again once he'd acquired a very strong high income skill. His was copywriting. You can also stack high income skills on top of one another as well. There's a really interesting section of the book that I'm going to read to you now. Okay, so this is page 79, and it's from a section called Why is $10,000 the Magic Number? And I quote, "There are two reasons why $10,000 per month is the magic number for a high income skill. First, by earning $10,000 a month, which is $120,000 a year, you'll be in the top 6% of income earners in America. You'll also be able to sustain a comfortable lifestyle. The second reason is a significant insight that no one else is talking about right now. It's an insight I have gained only from my personal experience. From my past 2 decades of teaching people from all over the world, I noticed something strange about people's psychology and income level. There is a glass ceiling most people have with earning $10,000 in a single month. If they don't make it, then they are one type of person, but if they do, they become another type of person." And Dan goes on to give examples and talk about how he's seen this through numbers of different people, his students and so forth. And he stresses the importance of building this kind of skill. High income skills are also transferable across industries. So if you have these kind of skills and you're in one kind of industry, and maybe there's a recession, something happens, you lose your job, you can transfer that and you can go work in a completely different industry. So it gives flexibility as well to the holder of these skills. Dan says it's all about communicating your value better than your competition. So when Dan was first told by his mentor, and he gives a great account of this in the book, double what you're asking for, double it again. Dan's self-belief held him back. He was kind of projecting as to what he would pay onto the skills. Maybe he was undervaluing himself. And so his mentor literally had him go and practice in front of a mirror and keep saying, what's your daily rate? How much are you charging for the project? And Dan would have to respond each time, and he would stutter. And finally, they kept doing it until the point where Dan actually was able to say it confidently and believe in it. So it sounds like a silly exercise, but I'm taking him at his word that this actually happened, and it kind of makes sense. A large part of life to some degree is rehearsal, and so Dan had to rehearse and make sure he's prepared so that when he goes into these meetings, he can demand the kind of high dollar figures that he talks about in the book. The third note is success requires effort. So Dan talks about the idea of passive income, and he doesn't like that phrase. He thinks it's very misleading. He doesn't want people being sucked into a lot of the stuff you see now where people are promising these lifestyles where you'll go surfing around the world and the money will just come in and accumulate in the bank account. So there are some people that are able to do that, but they are the people that work the hardest, and that's what Dan's kind of stressing in his book, is that there's going to have to be a lot of effort made at the beginning to try and grow the business and to build social capital. We'll talk about those things later on in the review, but success requires a lot of effort. You don't just set up an Amazon seller account and make millions like a lot of people claim. He talks about the wealth triangle. I thought this was very interesting and kind of gives an order for it as well. So Firstly, you obtain power from your high income skills. Then once you've got those, you can then profit from scaling a business that uses those skills. And then finally, he says, then that gives you the possibility, once you've been able to scale the business, to then look at some high return investments. So these kind of take you through the various stages of financial security. But obviously, he stresses, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to get those high income skills. Another section I thought was pretty neat in the book was he talks about how to calculate your adjusted hourly rate. On the surface level, it's pretty straightforward. He asks you to think about what you'd like to make in a year, then divide that by 12 to get your monthly income, and so on and so on. But he says obviously people don't work 8 hours a day. People have distractions, people have things happening. So he has a little formula in the book that I won't spoil for you, but it basically tells you how to calculate an adjusted hourly rate. So if you're an entrepreneur and someone, I had this happen to me the other day actually. A guy that I know was sitting in a restaurant with me, and he just looked at me and he said, "Mike, I need you to work on this project. What's your daily rate?" And I didn't have an answer for him. It's not really a project that I was expecting to even to be offered. But I wish that I'd had something like Dan's book available at the time, because at least then I would have been able to give him an answer. Maybe we could have negotiated from there. But being able to know, what your rate should be based on your high income skills and based on what your goals are for what you want to earn in a year, having that little graph there where you can calculate it right in all the boxes is very helpful. So you'll be able to actually give people a number. Another great thing I liked about Dan's book is he talks about scripting your day versus scheduling your day. The distinction is that when you schedule your day, you're basically deciding what's going to happen based on what other people want, and he's all about take control of your day and be as productive as you can. So that's why you need to script your day. You think about what you need to get done. You need to look at things like the 80-20 rule to kind of decide what should be prioritized, and then work on those things that matter to you. He has a really interesting chapter at the end of the book talking about sales, so there's some good takeaways from that. The first one is that the less you talk, the more you close. Simply put, the more that you listen, i.e. the less that you talk, the more you're going to learn about your clients or your prospective clients. And that means that you'll be able to learn more about their pain points. You can ask the right questions to drill into those, and then you can paraphrase that back to them to show them that you've understood it. But essentially, you don't want to be like the typical slimy salesman who's always talking. The key is to just listen, soak up everything, drill down, and then be specific with words. So ask them, what specifically can I help you with, those kind of things. And he has a whole section about that as well. So it just allows clarity between you and your prospect, so that you can, decide ultimately whether or not what you're selling them is actually going to be a good fit for them. And one thing Dan stresses is that you don't just sell for the sake of selling. You sell to add value, and if your product's not right, be prepared to recommend a different solution, maybe by a competitor. He talks about the 3 stages of what he calls a high-ticket closing call. My understanding of this term is that it's more of it's an inbound call rather than an outbound calling call. So cold calling call, sorry. So basically, people have already done some research about you, and then they're calling in. And then he talks about the 3 stages that you need to go through. Again, I won't spoil it for you, but it's nice because it kind of it sounds a lot like what I've heard before with straight line closing. You've probably heard that term as well, where basically every sale is the same. And what basically Dan's saying is every call is essentially the same. They go through the same stages, if you will, and the kind of things that you need to look for at each stage. I really liked a section where he talks about growth. He says basically the key to growing your business is through attraction, retention, and optimization. In the customer experience world, we talk a lot about retention. One of the books that I reviewed, Never Lose a Customer Again by Jerry Coleman, talks all about retention. There's a lot of debate in the customer experience world right now between that and then attraction as well. Is it more efficient in the long run to spend time attracting customers rather than focusing on retention? I know that there's definitely been some research recently that's shown the attraction, that stage in bringing in new customers, is when customers are actually most likely to talk about their experiences. So it's interesting. So there's this debate in the CX world, but Dan brings a whole new section in, which is optimization. And he said if you can hit all three, then that's really the hot spot. And optimization is great because he talks about a few different techniques, how you can actually optimize existing customers, which a lot of people don't think about doing. And we're not just simply talking about cross-selling and making sure they're buying everything. It's more about optimizing their experience as well, so that they become raving fans of the brand. So I thought that was very interesting. He even breaks down one of his sales funnels and how he optimizes new clients as well. So I thought that was very interesting. And then finally, and this was the best part of the book for me, I kind of touched on this earlier on, is the idea of social capital. And so I'm actually going to read a section of the book now. So this is page 197, and what Dan says is as follows. Financial capital is not the most valuable form of capital. What is valuable is a form of capital that allows you to multiply financial capital. It's called social capital. You might have heard the saying that attention is the new currency. Well, that's only partly true. Attention itself is not a form of currency. The right attention from the right people is the new currency. And actually, while I've got the book in front of me, let me just quickly flip to page 198. I wasn't planning on reading this, but it just jogged my memory. He talks about Kylie Jenner, and he says the reason she could create so much wealth at such a staggering speed is that she spent years building a huge reserve of social capital, so that when she converted this reserve into financial capital, she accomplished a feat that no other company in history had accomplished. So the note that I've made is that any platform is essentially a bank for your social capital, and Dan recommends depositing often and withdrawing rarely. And when you withdraw, that's when you convert to financial capital. So this book was actually very surprising. I know, like I said, I follow Dan. I watch his YouTube videos. I think that everything that he puts out, there's a lot of value in. Was very interested in what I was going to get from this book. I was actually surprised how easy it was to read as well. I read it really quickly, as I read it twice now. But yes, I recommend it, and I think anybody in the CX world who is an entrepreneur, in fact, even if you're an entrepreneur and you're not in the CX world, you're going to love this book. There's just so many great ideas to get you inspired, and tactics that you can use as well. And I like the way that Dan approaches business. He's not coming at it from the old school, which I see less and less of anyway now, where people are just trying to make as much money as possible. He's talking about it, coming at it from a value-added perspective, which is, of course, what we in the CX world believe. So, yeah, highly recommended. If you guys want to see any other book reviews, just send me, email me at support@ccxpexamsimulator.com and let me know any other books you want me to review. I've been reading a ton lately, so I'm always open to requests. Thanks, guys. See you next time.